Watch this.
We started this past spring worried we wouldn't have enough water to make it through the rest of the irrigation year. But a strong finish to that season set us up pretty nicely for this summer and refilled our reservoirs. Well, it's been hot and it's been dry for a while. So how are we looking for the rest of the summer? Keeping our kids safe in what is supposed to be one of the safest spots they can be. Students in parts of the rural Magic Valley are getting ready to head back to school, and they'll be surrounded by armed school resource officers, in part thanks to a pawn shop owner. They are the original native Idahoans. However, they've lost a lot in translation over the years with the loss of their language speakers. One North Idaho organization is hoping to change that with a children's book. Yeah, kids should be safe at school. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who disagrees with that statement. But how we make school safe for kids, well, that's where we get into this whole disagreement debacle. It's already a gun-free zone, but what about arming teachers or hiring armed security guards? Well, the debate goes back and forth on exactly what does work and what doesn't. And the debate has heated up recently, especially after a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers in Uvalde, Texas earlier this year. The events of that shooting led to one Twin Falls man, well, he took matters into his own hands. Forrest Anderson raised $15,000 to buy Southern Idaho SRO's rifle-rated, that is, body armor. And this is where we want to bring in Andrew Bartline, who talked to Forrest about this to kind of get an understanding, like, how is this not available already to security guards that work at schools?
So it is available, but there's a little bit of nuance here as the technology has changed with time, Brian. So that technology is not as it was before, so that sort of adds the nuance. Forrest Anderson is a firearms instructor, so he knows it well. He's highly educated in guns, body armor, things of that nature. So when he saw that security video inside Robb Elementary, says it made him very upset, but he also understands the officers were waiting for equipment and gear that would keep them safe too when they ultimately could confront the shooter. Now, in these moments, seconds matter to save lives. That's what Anderson said verbatim. And while a school resource officer may have a rifle-rated body armor, they're likely not wearing it right at the moment when they need it. The gear is old, it's bulky, it can weigh up to 20 pounds, so they're not wearing it throughout the day. It's realistic that it's in a car, it's somewhere else, and running out to the car to grab that body armor wastes time before you can come back in and do what needs to be done. That technology has since changed, and Anderson says the new gear weighs just a few pounds.
If we are going to ask our officers to go through the door, if we're going to ask our officers to walk through the door despite bullets coming through it and stop that assailant, surely we as a state, we as communities, and we as individuals can equip them with the best equipment.
I mean, rifle grade plates for school resource officers. This is something that's necessary now. How does that make you feel?
It's just a different commentary on just who we are as a people. I don't know if we've gotten better or worse. That's kind of a day-to-day evaluation. But to have the tools at your disposal so there is no excuses why you didn't do your job. And truly, that's basically what we're doing here. We're telling people that we're going to give you everything possible for you to do your job. Now go do it.
They need body armor that they can wear all day, every day, that isn't cumbersome, but they need to have it on. So when it happens, they're ready to react to the situation. They don't have to go do some other things before they're ready. We saw what happens when that happens. We saw that in Uvalde.
Now, Captain Bishop at the Twin Falls Sheriff's Office says the new gear is a huge benefit to SROs, especially since it can be very expensive, sometimes up to $800 a plate. That's often not in the budget for a small department placing an SRO at a high school, middle school, elementary school, whatever it may be. And with Anderson getting these plates at a discount from his supplier, the plates are going to be directly donated to the departments and those SROs, which allows that money to be stretched even further. So, I mean, you kind of hear this in journalism, Brian. The best camera you have is the camera on you. Yeah. So the best armor you could have is what you're wearing. So if it's lighter, it's more cumbersome, it's more modern, it's going to be easier for them to have it on them to do what they need to do.
I keep going back to these assault-style rifles have bullets and ammunition that are meant to pierce military helmets. Are these going to be enough? I mean, these rifle-rated plates, are they enough?
I was told by Bishop, I mean, if you get shot by an AR-15 with one of these, I mean, it'll knock you, it'll hit you, it won't pierce you. They can take multiple bullets, but it's not like it gets rid of the blow. It'll probably knock you out. But yeah, it will stop the bullet from penetrating you.
And it's tough to use Uvalde as a case study because they did have that equipment at some point, but still waited until they could pierce that room at all. So it's a debate that's going to keep going.
Yeah, we did not solve it today.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you very much, Andrew. You know, it's supposed to be an easy bipartisan win, with the actual winners supposed to be our veterans, who would get better benefits after being exposed to toxic chemicals while working near burn pits while at war. Other toxic chemicals as well. You remember Agent Orange in Vietnam? That kind of stuff is what they needed help with. And it would have helped 3.5 million veterans get the medical care they need without having to jump through too many hoops to get it. The bill passed the House back in June, the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., without the support, by the way, of both Idaho Representatives Russ Fulcher and Mike Simpson. They voted no. It then passed the Senate a few days later, 84-14, without Idaho Senators Mike Crapo and Jim Rish's support. They also voted no. But because of administrative issues, well, they made some changes to the bill. Some language had to be changed, and then there was a second vote that was needed. That vote happened Wednesday, and it failed, with 25 Republican senators flipping their votes. So the big question is why? Well, a lot of the naysayers, well, they say it was because of the $400 billion of mandatory spending versus discretionary spending, whether they could have this money to do with what they wish or if they would have to ask for permission to use it over a 10-year period. $400 billion, the vocal critics said, that had nothing to do with veterans, which is how Crapo and Risch explained their no votes the second time. Well, we asked for a better explanation of this no vote last Thursday, but Risch's office responded with they had nothing else to, quote, share at this time. As for Crapo, well, today they did share, and he told us the PACT Act failed to advance in the Senate last week because Democrats forced a vote on a bill filled with budget gimmicks to score political points. It's not that we, Republicans, don't support veterans, but Democrats should do a better job of working together to come up with a better bill, he said, one without a nearly $400 billion slush fund for unrestrained and unrelated spending. He also blames Democrats for not allowing a vote on an amendment to this bill, one that would have removed that $400 billion without reducing the funding for veterans' benefits. But what is that $400 billion in unrelated spending? What's that all about? We don't know. We were hoping to get specifics, but we haven't heard back yet. From any of our delegation, by the way. We've asked for answers to our specific questions from all four. The bill may get another life, though. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he plans to schedule another vote this week, and if they don't get it then, well, they're going to have to wait until September because Congress will be on a month-long recess that begins on Friday. All right, earlier this year, we heard concerns from the water and agriculture community about the drought situation in southwest Idaho, the continuing drought situation, because this isn't just a one-off. Last year, tough for ag operations in our area. Drought, heat, really impacting water resources a significant degree. Some of those operations in the agriculture industry had to shut down their irrigation weeks before, months in some cases before they'd planned. Conditions got too tough. Predictions for this year, they weren't much better, especially when we had such a dry spring in March that wasn't so good. But then we got our hopes up when we hit May and June. Circling back to those early season predictions here on August 1st, Joe Paris talked with water managers in southwest Idaho about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and maybe the not so ugly so far.
In early 2022, there were major concerns about drought and water conditions in southwest Idaho. After a brutal 2021, there was fear of a repeat.
We definitely avoided the worst case scenario. We had an awful snowpack on April 1st across the state. But then we had incredibly cool temperatures for basically April, May, and June.
David Hokema is a hydrologist with the Idaho Department of Water Resources. He says the nice cool weather in the spring, especially at higher elevations, really made a huge difference for the summer months. Cooler temps protected the snow runoff from depleting early in the season.
Those really cool temperatures slowed down the melt, and with the precip coming in and that cool weather, we're losing our low elevation snowpack, but building some high elevation snowpack. So overall, the snowpack was somewhat stable.
Things look a lot better as of now.
Ryan Hedrick monitors the water and drought situation for the Bureau of Reclamation. They too had major concerns coming into the year, especially after 2021 conditions.
Biggest concern was we weren't going to fill the system. But with that late spring, that wet late spring, things turned around for us and we were able to fill all the reservoirs.
One major factor that the agriculture community follows closely is the amount of irrigation water that is available for their operations. If water resources are low, agriculture seasons get cut down, costing Idahoans valuable business. There were fears that irrigation supply would run out in the hot summer months, but now the situation looks more promising.
It looked like they were talking about shutting down earlier at the start of the year with the low water, with an average water. It depends on what the irrigation districts want to do, but I could see them going into late September and then maybe shutting off around there.
Water levels at reservoirs in the Boise Basin also look better than expected. Lucky Peak sits at 99% full, Anderson Ranch 90%, and Arrow Rock 36%. The Boise River system is at 77 capacity as a whole.
We always have to be careful, but it looks like we're going to have a good carryover high in the system, which is what we're going for, and it sets us up for next year, but it never keeps us out of the danger zone.
The developments have also pushed southwest Idaho out of drought classification.
In fact, in the Boise Basin, we're no longer in a drought category. Our category is drier than normal. And even then, we're just barely on the edge of drier than normal.
Portions of central and southeast Idaho are seeing really challenging conditions, with extreme drought in some spots. The major difference from east to west, weather patterns to start the year.
A lot of it had to do with the really cool temperatures. If we hadn't had those cool temperatures, even with the precip coming in, we would not have recovered from drought. Those temperatures were the key to slowing everything down and allowing the reservoir system to fill.
So sometimes you need a little bit of luck. It sounds like we got it this year.
Yeah, last year we missed it, and this year we got it.
So it is dry out there. So what does all of this mean? Well, we're going to keep our eye on it. The hope, though, is that in southwest Idaho, agriculture operations are able to finish the season strong, and then they can start planning ahead to next year. What next year looks like is up in the air, but they're hoping that the reserves and the reservoirs here in southwest Idaho are enough to really push them into a good spot for 2023. Other places, though, across Idaho, really in the south and the east of Idaho, there are some problem spots that we are going to be looking at. But I do want to mention something else while we're talking about all the stuff with Lucky Peak and water levels. The seasonal drawdown for Lucky Peak, it actually begins on August 14th. So coming up in about 2 weeks, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation, they said back on Friday, they're going to start lowering the pool of Lucky Peak Reservoir over a 2-week period. So starting on August 14th, we're going to see the reservoir there drop 1 to 3 feet a day. So if you're boating up there, if you're planning on being up there, Brian, be aware, coming up on August 14th, water levels start to go down big time.
We don't want to see another boat stuck to the shore at Lucky Peak Reservoir this year.
No, we don't.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. All right, speaking of this heat and the dry that's out there, 6 consecutive days we've had triple-digit temperatures. That's the end of the month of July, but today we get there again, making it 7 days in a row of 100 degrees or hotter. And over the weekend, we got a text message from Jackie, who remembers that temperature on Friday of 104 degrees that tied a record, she even says, going back to 1934. Jackie's paying attention. So was global warming an issue that year, too, back in 1934, she wants to know. So that's a question we brought to meteorologist Bree Eggers to see if she could help us out to answer it. Bree?
You know, Brian, it's a really common question when we see those records being set, even or especially so when it's in the early 1900s or in the late 1800s, because records go all the way back to 1875. Wanted to show you, we'll start with this, because it's a great question from Jackie. Looking at our consecutive stretches of triple-digit days, you mentioned it. We saw a 6-day stretch this year and a 7-day stretch this year. It ends today. Thankfully, relief is on the way. But then you see some of these dates, 1931, 1875. You're talking about looking at a stretch of days, so looking at a very small period in time. So let's look at the bigger picture. Let's look at the top hottest summers on record, taking it all the way back to 1875. That's looking at the temperatures for June, July, and August. And I'll just step away so you can look at this list here. Now, there may be one glaring number that you're looking at, and this would take it back to Jackie's point of 1934. How about the 8th spot here, the 8th hottest summer, 1961. Okay, so maybe that could be an argument. It was hot back then too. It made it in the list of top 10s, but you see that the rest of the top 10 lists here, all in the years of the 2000s. So then I took a look at the 40 hottest summers on record for Boise, again in 146 years of records. And I broke those 146 years of records into a roughly 30-year chunks. So a 30-year chunk here, a 30-year chunk here, and a 30-year chunk here to see how many times one of those years in that span made it into the top 40 hottest summers. And you'll notice the increase in frequency here, 24, so more than half of the top 40 hottest summers on record have occurred within the last 3 decades. And the same applies for the hottest Julys on record as well. In fact, this past July goes down in Boise records as the 8th hottest July on record. And last year was the hottest summer on record for Boise. We'll be right back with the 208 after a quick break.
All right, back in the 17th century, when French-Canadian fur traders first encountered the Native Americans of the Intermountain Northwest, they referred to them as the Nez Perce, or the pierced nose, which is odd since, well, they weren't really a tribe known to pierce their noses. They called themselves lots of other things, not that. One of them being the Nimupu, a name that translates simply to the people. The people once covered an area more than 17 million acres, following the seasons and the buffalo and the salmon across what is now part of Montana, Oregon, Washington, and almost all of Idaho. Today, they are confined to a reservation of about 750,000 acres in North Idaho, with the headquarters being in Lapwai. And over the generations, they haven't just lost a lot of territory, but they've also lost the distinguished fluency of their language. One of the last of those speakers, a lifelong speaker they call them, was the grandfather of Bessie Walker. He was a level 10 on the fluency guidelines, the top level, and there weren't too many around who could speak at his level. Well, Bessie hopes to change that. 4 years ago, she started this organization. It's a nonprofit to promote, protect, and revitalize the Ninupu. She calls it the Hipithnu. That's the name of the organization. It's to help promote the language and culture. And step one, they say, is to start early. And together with the Language Conservancy and a grant from the Steel Reese Foundation, they just released a first ever children's book written in the Ninupu language.
It's called Ahatuwasa at Kaimwasim, which means I love you because you're you.
Itko Kemka Awita Ka
So the book is part of a series too, though we have other ones that are coming out because like I said, we're trying to build up our curriculum for an immersion school of our own to where, you know, because there's no place like that.
Why is it important to you to keep this going and also to start it at a young age?
Well, because yeah, for one, there's no more highly fluent, distinguished speakers left, you know, and it's important to me because like my grandpa, you know, he didn't really have anybody to speak to, but that was just how it was, you know. There was this forced experience that my grandparents experienced, you know, with the boarding schools, and the cutting off of the cultures. And so he didn't, like that era, they didn't want to teach their children because they didn't want to put their children in harm's way or, you know, shamed out or feeling all these feelings that they had to experience. And that's what a lot of us have to get past too, you know, because there's this shame that goes attached with it. You know, my grandparents were shamed out to not learn the language, to give it away. And then here we are we're ashamed because we don't know our language, you know, because that's where I come from. And I was just ashamed. And I guess that's kind of the root of my drive. I'm proud to be Nimipu, Walaupu, but it's just, you know, getting past that. You know, a lot of people aren't past that phase of where, you know, they're not ashamed anymore.
Kemka tatsi matayakta.
What do you like about this book?
Matski hatte und nimm.
That's how kids talk, you know, they're just silly. And I've been around kids for a long time and got lots of nieces, nephews, and had a big family. So I feel like I have a lot of influences from that too. You know, I really like being around kids.
Where do you see, like, what would be the ultimate goal for you with this book and this school?
Yeah, for the school just to thrive, you know, like for me, like I said, it's a good shame, you know, and I know we all feel like that, especially on the reservation. You know, it's not that easy. And so just trying to bring some good feelings back.
A good shame, she says. The Steel Reefs Foundation, by the way, is a charitable trust created to help Native nations in Idaho and Montana. They've been working with Head Start for years to help with the Nimipu fluency. And that goal of an immersion school, Bessie says she hopes to have it up and running within a year. So she's pretty, she's really going to go for it. And they plan to have room for 7 to 8 kids there. And they need people who not only know the language, but they also have to have teaching skills as well. All right, a couple of comments today. I'm putting rifle-related or rifle-rated armor on some of our SROs in schools like this one. It's a great idea to have suitable gear for security officers in schools. We still need to have red flag laws and ban AR-15 weapons from civilians. They're the weapons involved in most of the recent school shootings, pronounced me-cal. Are we going to give armor to our kids and teachers too, asks BNB, as well as giving them to the SROs. We normally have 9 days of triple-digit temps. How many have we had so far this year, asks Joe in Boise. 16, says Bree. Yeah, it's hot. Thank you, Bree, for doing such an in-depth research on trending temperatures. Perhaps it will help people better understand the reality of global climate change, says Jennifer. Brian, you make things work. Your laptop's sitting on 2 KTVB mugs. Keep up the good work. All of you, the 208, are wonderful. How many times you had that camera go right up your nose? We don't want any of that here. We'll see you back here tomorrow.